What's up guys, welcome to an editing deep dive video. So I actually filmed this when the same time that I filmed part one. So if you haven't checked out part one and you're just interested in how I shot the images and all that, you can go check that out. It's already posted. But I wanted to just come back and redo the intro for context here. So this whole editing session for the rest of the video was the first time that I looked at these images, and it was me editing through them. So you're gonna see how I'm editing and my thought process and what's going on with the DNGs versus the JPEGs and all of that. So we'll just go ahead and jump in and you can watch all that. And at the end, I'll give a little more thoughts on what's up. All right, so here is the first raw file that we took. And this was the one that was overexposed. So let's just zoom in right here, and we have okay detail. You can see it's kind of mushy, but I mean, look at that van there. And there's Orion's Nebula. The stars are looking a little yucky, but I want to see I want to see like what kind of highlight recovery we're talking about here. Not very much. So that's overexposed. We can see the histogram there from what it was to bringing those highlights down. We'll bring the whites down. And you can see that all of this detail was just crushed. So we lost that you can see is evidence in how that red and green is moving there on the right of the histogram. You can also see how that's not really doing much. If we bring down the overall exposure, so there's like -1, and that's maybe better. Surprisingly, the noise doesn't look horrible. So here's the other thing. Here's the bummer. If we go into detail, see this right here, this noise reduction, denoise is not currently compatible with this photo format. That right there tells you that this is not a real raw photo anymore. Whatever they've done to it, it's in a DNG container, but it is not a raw photo anymore, because if it were, the denoising AI algorithm would be able to work on it. So now we just have to use the manual noise reduction slider, which it has already by default brought up to 35. I don't know why it does this for phone stuff, but it does. And it's not the first time it's done that. It's done that with it's done that with phones for a while now. We can also see that this is really kind of magenta. So we can see the magenta is pushed way up there. If we were to tweak a little bit, I like my dark skies a little bluer. It just gives a little bit better of a feeling. Look, it had clarity to +8, and I didn't touch that. So it already gave it some clarity. That's wild. All right, I really don't want to do too much to this, but it is holding up okay, other than the fact that it was overexposed. We could clean up that vignetting a little bit, but I do want to we'll just go ahead and crop it for Instagram size. We'll just crop out a little bit of that vignetting. I don't want to crop Beetlejuice too much over there, or too close to it. All right, that needs a little more work, but we're going to hold on to that. Let's look at a couple of other things. Okay. Oh my God, look at this. This is unreal. Look at how creamy, and you know, creamy is a word that should only be used for desserts. Like, why does my photo look creamy? Oh, that's horrible. I mean, I know why. I know what it did. It completely over denoised. And if you look here, you can actually see banding. You can see color banding from who knows what I was doing. We can exaggerate this a little bit. If we just open this up in Camera Raw, oh my gosh. I don't even look at Oh, look at that. Look how bad that is. There. So if we dehaze this a little bit, you can see I'm pushing this so that you can see the wonkiness here in these colors and these banding. And that has to do with how the phone processed it and all down here. So I mean you couldn't even hardly edit this anything at all. And look how magenta that is. There, look at a before and an after from just cleaning that up just a pinch. But my goodness, that is the softest, blurriest, mushiest, creamiest, yuckiest thing ever. That is just nuts. All right, so here's the next shot from Pro mode, and this was also raw. This is when I turned it down to ISO 800, so we should have a little bit better highlight recoveries. So let's just see. I'm just gonna do, that is better. We can still see some hot spots in there. This is just from the light, but that's a lot better because, you know, not being overexposed is proper. So we can come back up here and we can do a reverse vignetting. So we can come in here to the vignette and look at that. We can just, I mean, just barely. And then we can also do a little mask and bring this down again, just like we did for the last one. And just bring up that exposure just a bit to kind of match it a little evenly. I'm going to add quite a bit of clarity and texture just because this kind of needs it, but then I'm also going to double check the detail again. So this is from the regular Pro mode, even though it says that it's a DNG, it is not a true raw image. I'm going to bring up the noise reduction just a pinch. In this case, I don't mind a little bit of extra grain if it looks more natural. So this actually looks decent. All right, so we need to tweak the color a little bit. Again, with that magenta, just want to back that magenta off a little bit. All right. So let's do this though. We're going to make a new copy, new layer. I'm going to go into a different program and I'm going to tweak it in Luminar a little bit and see what Luminar's denoising will do. Because that works differently than the denoising. It's an AI denoising, but it works differently than the one in Adobe. So we can just go right here and write, it recommends low, which I typically use anyways. All right, so that's very subtle and I'm okay with that. That just helped take away a little bit of that banding and artifacting. So now we're just going to do a little AI enhancing and see what it has to say about that. Just a little bit. Again, you just really can't push these phone images too hard, you know? What I will do is add a little bit of an Orton effect. But I'm going to take it off the clouds. Like I said, I really don't want to do too much to this image because it will hurt. And then I'll go ahead and do a similar crop so we can crop out some of the yuckies without having to Photoshop it too much. I also don't like cropping these phone images too much because they don't have much to work with anyways with their little sensors. So I don't want to push it too hard, but that is pretty nice. And you know what? I do want to take out a couple of those distracting elements in there, like this van. Thank you. And this. Whatever this blob of light was. You get this close, you can't even tell what that was. It's just going to look mushy. But that's okay. Because I don't want it distracting you from the image overall, you know? Like now you can't even tell. So we took those things out and you can't even tell. Again, as long as we don't crop in. So that's it. I'm going to save this image just like this. All right, here we go. This is Expert Raw mode. So Expert Raw is supposed to be better, and it kind of used to be, but clearly there is some weird stuff happening now. So again, we see this, it's highlighted as a DNG, but I promise you it's not. 16-bit depth. What was the other one? Pro mode. 8-bit depth. Look at that. So there's another theoretical advantage for Expert Raw, is it should have a lot more bit depth for color. But here we can just see this is just so, oh my god, look at this JPEG. That's even worse. That is so much worse than the Pro mode JPEG. All right, so here is the Expert Raw DNG, and this was the same settings as with the image we just edited, 20 seconds, ISO 800, same lens. It should not look like this. Like, that is just horrible. So let's see what happens when we try to clean things up. Okay, so I will say that I'm pleasantly surprised by bringing that up 2 stops in exposure, and the detail is there. That is better. That is much better than I anticipated. Bring up the dehaze a bit. That helps. I brought up the clarity, but I'm also going to bring up well, I'll do the noise reduction as a global, actually, which I normally don't do, but in this case, again, here it is, not currently compatible with this format. That means that this, even though it's a DNG and even though it's a 16-bit DNG, they're doing some weird stacking and some sort of lossy or lossless JPEG thing that's just not adding up. So we'll just bring that up a little bit. What I want to see now is, can we recover this bit without making it look weird? Nope. So there's no saving this at all. There's no saving that bit. So let's try this though. I'm going to do a new mask. I'm going to do a new brush. I'm going to brush in this bit right here. Try to get those. And now I'm just going to increase the shadows. And 100%, and that barely did anything at all. But on the plus side, it looks not as bad as I thought. All right. Still mushy though. Okay, so this was the before, and this is the after for just what we've done in Camera Raw. All right, so we're gonna do the same crop, or the same-ish crop. I didn't check my pixels to do the exact crop, but that's pretty close. And I'm gonna go into, I'm gonna do the same things into Luminar. All right, there we go. That was pretty similar. Oh, let's just go ahead and take out those things real quick to make it match. This really doesn't even matter, but I'm doing it anyways. Okay. Still got that weird magenta shift. All right, so that was pretty similar editing. So now let's compare that to this guy. All right, so this is from the Pro mode on the left, and this is from Expert Raw on the right. And you can definitely see there is a lot more detail on the Expert Raw. After looking at it, the Expert Raw looks way better. And if we punch in a little bit, that's not even, that's nuts how much different that is for the detail that's in the Expert Raw shot. And then if we look at the nebula, I would say that maybe the stars in the nebula look better on, when you zoom in, they look better on the Pro mode than the Astro mode. But when you zoom out as a whole, I think the Expert Raw image looks a little bit better. Definitely more detailed, especially down here in the land. That is very interesting. All right, so now let's look at let's look at the Astro mode. This is the 4-minute Astro image. So again, we can see here DNG and 16-bit, but we should see a fair amount of difference here. Wow, look at all the weirdness. Because this is a stack. So the stars look better, I can tell you that. They're a little soft, actually, but the nebulosity looks better around Orion. This looks mushy. This looks more like the Pro mode and less like the Expert Raw mode. So I guess let's just try to edit this as, oh look, it's doing it again. This is what the S23 did. Look at that. So I brought it up by 1 stop. Wow. Look at this. This is the artifacting. This is the image breaking down. That banding is horrible. So in here, it's not as bad. This is definitely greener though, and the other ones had a magenta problem. This has a green problem. But that, I mean, you can't look at that. You can't even bring it up at all. And even at 0, you can still see, look at the banding in there. And this is the raw image. This should not be looking like this. Okay, so now let's just look at the JPEG that it gave us for the 4-minute. Also, you notice the size difference. The JPEG that it gave us for the Astro mode is smaller. Wow, look at how much magenta it added. Look at the editing on this. This is absolutely gnarly. Let's go ahead and open this up into Camera Raw and let's see if we can fix this. So notice we just brought it up 1 stop. So bringing this up, the JPEG is actually editing better than the raw image was because it's already denoised it and done the stacking and all of that stuff. But we really need to fix this color. All right, so lots of weird things going on in here over the 4-minute stacking bit. I'm just going to, you know what, I'm not going to bother with this. I'm just going to denoise it in, I will bring up the color. Let's bring up this color noise. I'm just dehazing that sky just a pinch, and I think that's good. All right, so now we just need to heal out some things. Okay, now let's take this into Luminar and see if we can just do the same style of cleanup and editing as the other two. So now this is recommending middle. I just don't know if I want to do middle because I think that'll make it super yucky. Look at that business from the blending of the 4-minute stacking. All right. Now we'll do a little bit of enhance. I did about 15 to 20 on the other ones. Okay, there we are. So this is the 4-minute. This is the final version of the 4-minute Astro shot from the Astro mode in Expert Raw. And this is the Pro mode from JPEG. Oh, you know what we didn't do? I didn't crop this. So if we zoom in, I didn't fix all that stuff. I probably should, but that's yuckies. Okay, whatever. So let's look at the stars first, because this is an Astro thing after all. So here's Expert Raw mode in the 4-minute Astro on the right, and on the left is the Pro mode 20-second single exposure. Nebulosity and the stars are looking much better in the Astro mode. So if we scroll down here though, we're seeing a little bit more detail in the Pro mode. I don't know, it's hard to tell, but obviously there's a lot of washed out. There's a lot of differences here. We're definitely seeing the Pro mode still more magenta, and this is more green. Now let's compare that to, here is the Expert Raw. Okay, so now we've got the Expert Raw 20-second single exposure ISO 800 on the left and the 4-minute Astro mode on the right. So again, we can see the Astro mode is clearly better here for the stars and the nebulosity. But if we look down here, I would say that the regular Expert Raw single exposure has a better detail in the foreground, even though the foreground is not nearly as bright. So what you have to take into consideration too about this brightness, the difference is this was a 4-minute stack and the moon was out at this. So this is natural moonlight and we're stacking these exposures, which is going to help. So that's why this on the left is darker, because it's a single 20-second exposure and this is a stack. So if we go back here to this guy and we look at the thingy here, it says a 19-second exposure. So we know that it was a 4-minute exposure. So if this was 19 seconds out of a 4-minute exposure, that's 240 seconds divided by 19. That's like what, 12 and a half, 12.6? Yeah. So this took 12 images at 19 seconds, ISO 1600, and blended them together, and this is what we got. So also look at the dimensions. So in this Expert Raw, we're using the 1x. We've got 4284 by 5712, which is a sizable image. 9 megabit and 9 meg. And then the 4-minute blended one, 3000 by 4000 at 3 meg. So that's way smaller. And then the JPEG is compressed to 2.62 meg. So the DNG should be a lot bigger than 3 meg. And the fact that it's almost the same size as the JPEG, very telling. In Pro mode, we've got the same 3000 by 4000, but notice we've got a 35 meg file. And then if we look at the JPEG from that, we've got a 1.9 meg file. So this file size is much larger and has theoretically more data, but not really. So back on the Expert Raw Astro 4-minute exposure, the raw file is only 3 meg. That is not good. And the same thing with this, the raw file is only 10 meg, not 9.2 meg, and the JPEG is 5 meg. That is just not good. They're doing a lot of weird things with their raw data, and then it's not very raw. So I don't even know if I want to bother looking at this. So right off the bat, you can tell that it's not even reading. Like, this is just, oh, that is bad, bad, bad. And look at that. So this is the raw file. This should not be doing this. And this is the way that they've compressed it and put it in that weird container and done weird stuff with it. So we're not even gonna look at that. Let's just look at the JPEG. This was the, I think this was the 5X. This was the telephoto. Look at that. It's not even in focus. It's blurry. There is a little bit of nebulosity there, but that's kind of horrible. All right, so that was the first look at the Astro modes, all three ways that you can do Astro with the S24 Ultra. It's intense. So I will say, on the one hand, I'm very impressed and I'm very stoked and very glad for technology allowing people who have never seen the stars or don't have any cameras or anything like that to be able to get into this and now very easily, in three different ways, capture the stars and the astro photography. As a photographer and a YouTuber who cares about people getting into photography and being creative, and as a scientist who cares about physics and the natural world and, you know, all of this stuff, that means a lot. And I just thank my lucky stars, pun intended, every day that I have something in my pocket that can do this, and that you have something in your pocket that can do this for you. And hopefully that inspires people to continue on with astrophotography. Now, as far as the professional photographer and, you know, astronomer and astrophotographer in me, I am quite disappointed with what Samsung has done to the DNG files and to the ability to edit these raw images. That's a bummer. That makes it a lot harder to get what I personally would consider a usable image and my high standards of photography. Now, I know that's bias and I know that that's subjective, and that's why I'm stating that. I'm okay with that. That's for me personally. If you've never done this before, or if you don't have anything better, you might be completely blown away by this, and I don't want to diminish that in any way, shape, or form, because it is amazing. However, if you're looking to get the best of the best of the best out of your phone, and that's all you have, I think, and you're used to doing astro stuff, or you've used bigger cameras or whatever, telescopes, stacking, tracking, all that, then you might be a little bit disappointed with where Samsung has taken the ability to process these raw images. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. Let me know your comments, your thoughts. Did the images come out as you expected? Did they look all right? Are they up to your standards? If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.